an even bigger win than we anticipated. And I was just informed that we got double the number of votes that has ever been received in the great state of South Carolina. So that's pretty good. So it's a record times 2.
That was former US President Donald Trump making his victory speech at the GOP primary in South Carolina, shortly after beating Republican rival Nikki Haley in her home state. Donald Trump received around 60% of the vote, while Nikki Haley secured about 40%. And it was the result of a ruthless and methodical campaign by Trump's team, according to aides and those close to both campaigns. Reuters is reporting that Donald Trump's strategy was to isolate Nikki Haley politically by locking down endorsements. By the end of January, Donald Trump had the endorsements of 158 current and former South Carolina Republican officials, including lawmakers, mayors and sheriffs, which enhanced their grassroots campaign. A co-manager of Trump's campaign insists that another part of his success was harvesting data on the thousands of voters who attended the former president's rallies and using that information to communicate regularly with potential voters, whereas Nikki Haley's campaign largely relied on 1,700 volunteers across the state. Despite being beaten by Donald Trump by 20 percentage points on home turf, Nikki Haley has vowed to fight on.
I'm not giving up this fight when a majority of Americans disapprove of both Donald Trump and Joe Biden. South Carolina has spoken. We're the 4th state to do so. In the next 10 days, another 21 states and territories will speak. They have the right to a real choice. Not a Soviet-style election with only one candidate. And I have a duty to give them that choice.
But political analysts are speculating just how much longer Nikki Haley can survive in the race to the White House.
Here is the way the New York Times sees it in a piece by a number of its political reporters. They write, "It's hard to find a Republican lawmaker or operative who isn't privately speculating about Ms. Haley's ulterior motives. Is she hanging on as a Plan B candidate in case Mr. Trump dies or goes to prison? Is she positioning herself as the woman to lead a post-Trump Republican Party, the soothsayer who warned that Mr. Trump would lose again so she can return in 2028 and say, 'I told you so'?" Interesting possibilities, I suppose. What do you think of those?
Right. I think that she has two motivations right now. The first is what I mentioned earlier, in that I think that she could be possibly setting herself up for some sort of third-party run with a group like No Labels, which has made it clear that it's interested in stopping another Trump versus Biden election. Or, as you mentioned, she could be setting herself up as the Plan B candidate, the candidate who's there in the worst case scenario for Trump's court cases. But even in this scenario, let's go with that. Let's say that Trump is convicted in one or more of these cases and is prevented from running in the general election. What makes Nikki Haley think that she will be chosen as that Plan B candidate when Republican primary voters in her own state as well have so thoroughly rejected her?
Professor Joseph Siracusa has unpacked the numbers with Sky News host Pete Stefanovic.
Well, she's hanging out for a third-party nomination. She'll probably end up running for the No Labels Party, which has been around for about a decade. And we can't laugh this off, Pete. Third-party candidates like Abraham Lincoln and Teddy Roosevelt started that way. Thoreau, of course, finished off George H.W. Bush, and we have, of course, Ralph Nader, who finished off Al Gore later on. So, it's a very powerful position that she's in.
So, I mean, there had been a different way of thinking that she was hanging out there to keep her voters away from Donald Trump. And then once she does tap out, that her voters, her supporters would swing in behind Joe Biden, and that could ultimately tip the contest. Are you of that view at all?
No, sir. I like a slightly different view here, Pete, and it goes like this. Let's unpack the numbers. She beat Donald Trump South Carolina primary by 19% among independent voters. Only 7% of the voters are registered as or were independents So, that's a small number. But in the United States, and this might come as a surprise to your viewers, 27% of Americans sign up for the Republican Party, 27% sign up for the Democratic Party. 46% of Americans regard themselves as independent. Now, she could trash Trump in the independent thing. She'd become a very serious candidate. And I don't think people who wanted to vote for her are going to vote for either one of the candidates. She's actually said, a pox on both your houses. And I think she'll have the third party presidential run. And I think she'll be very, very effective. She's made it very clear that Americans are sick and tired of two grumpy old men trying to stay in the White House, or one of them getting back. So I think she's a force to be reckoned with. And look, she didn't look like she was losing Saturday, did she?
So she does not. Actually, no, it seems as though she's got no intention of stepping down. So that third party contest, so she could well hang in beyond Super Tuesday?
Oh, yes, sir. The people who are supporting her, and she's got over $200 million so far, don't want to see Donald Trump. That's all. They're no Trumpers. So the money will keep coming in. I think she will have that support. She reminds me, Pete, of that character in Terminator that keeps coming back after it's melted down. She's just not going away, and she's going to torture these guys right up into the end. And Trump, of course, has got all of his own problems.
That's what I wanted to get to too, because that is another school of thought that maybe she's just hanging in there, and on the chance that maybe one of those cases goes against Donald Trump that restricts him from going all the way to the White House.
Oh, that's right. If he stumbles, and she'd put on the Republican mantle very, very quickly, as a matter of fact. Trump's got a lot of problems. I heard him speak to the black conservative group. This guy, he would screw up a speech to a university of deaf people. He's absolutely tone deaf, Pete. He just doesn't know who he's talking to most of the time.
Yeah, he's still got so much support, though. Joe, we'll have to leave it there. Good to chat, though. We'll talk to you soon.